Chapter 1. Introduction. Life is competitive. Time is limited. Money is scarce and needs are endless. Survival is not for the weak. It's for the strong, the ruthless, and the smart. All humans have the ability to prey upon other humans and living creatures. It's in their psychological nature. Most, however, suppress this tendency while the rest act on the urges. The latter can be divided into two groups: those who do it with a rational mind and a goal-oriented intention, and those who brutally victimize others with psychopathic intentions. A smart move would be to join one group and avoid the other. Preying on others with a rational goal in mind and without causing harm to the other person is okay. You can persuade your friends or family members into changing bad habits through social influence. If you are using persuasion skills to make that sale, get your child to behave in a certain way, or influence your boss into accepting your idea, that's okay too. However, doing it with the intention of exploiting others is for psychopaths. These malicious lunatics are a group to be avoided. Know who to avoid and identify the abusers in your life. It can save you a lot of heartache, bitterness, and mental damage. These predators appear normal and charming, but it's just a facade. They have no conscience. They show up in your life, impress you, then use you. They make you doubt yourself, confuse you, kill your esteem, drain your energy, and leave you barely able to recognize yourself. The bad news is that they do not come with a label. Once a manipulator enters your life, he doesn't leave until you put a stop to it. To avoid them, you must learn how to spot them from a distance. Learn their tactics, understand their way of thinking, and know their characteristics that make them stand out. Knowledge is power. Arm yourself with it, and never be afraid to stand up for yourself. The art of manipulation. Society views manipulation as evil and unacceptable. It's taken as unacceptable because the manipulator conceals his true intentions to his victim. Had he been fully aware of what was happening, he would probably not have accepted. This is true. However, what everyone fails to understand is that manipulation occurs in different forms. It happens in our everyday life, from politics to entertainment and even through the media. For instance, the director of a romantic movie focuses on the human need for love and affection to make his movie a hit. He directs his actors to bring out an almost too real scene that literally brings the audience to tears. Reflect on this. Why would a fiction story bring a grown-up woman to tears? Why would a horror movie scare you when you are fully aware that nothing is real? This is a simple form of manipulation, but in this case, the victim is willing for it to work. The theater is always full, and the movies sell and make millions for the actors and producers. In politics, a candidate exploits the needs of the voters to garner votes. He promises to create jobs, improve infrastructure, and fix all problems. The voters then go ahead and vote for him. He gets the position and delivers nothing over his term. In the next election, he approaches the voters with the same promises, but targeting different needs, and guess what? He still gets votes. Manipulation has its positive and negative side. The above examples are somewhat acceptable. In these cases, no psychological or emotional harm is caused to the victims. Here is a guide on how you can be effective in getting others to want to do what you want them to do through the art of manipulation. This does not mean coercion. No one is forced into doing anything. You simply understand the needs and weaknesses of your target and use these to achieve your desired outcome, hopefully with no evil intention. How to be an effective manipulator. Most people do it for the short term and want instant results. To be an effective manipulator, it takes time. It's a skill that has to be polished through continuous practice. Give yourself time to make small progressive steps towards perfection. Change your mindset and change the attitude that manipulation is evil. You cannot work with a guilty conscience. This may take a while, but eventually effective manipulation becomes your second nature. To be successful in this, you need to be close to your victim. Learn their personality. Different personalities have different strengths and weaknesses. What ticks one is different from the other. Observe their reactions to different environments. What are their personal boundaries? Knowing this prevents you from working against their nature. You have to make it feel natural, otherwise nothing may come out of it. For you to effectively persuade, lead with the reward. Make them know that whatever you are leading them towards can benefit them. Then, let them develop their own path towards it. Naturally, people don't like to be told what to do. Your focus should be on the end result, not on the means to get there. Once control is achieved and the result attained, you cannot expose yourself. The other person does not need to know the part you have played. He should feel that it has all come from himself. No one wants to feel manipulated. It can break your relationships. Bragging of your prowess can make people cut you off. Celebrate your achievements alone. Basically, effective manipulation requires that you hide your true intentions, understand the psychological weaknesses of your target, and be ruthless enough to achieve your goals by cunningly maneuvering people. Negative manipulation. Manipulation becomes unacceptable when it leads to depression, anxiety, low confidence, and an overall detriment to the mental health of an individual. This negative form is most common in romantic relationships. Most manipulators get away with it because they make their victim lose self-confidence. The victim feels at fault for every single mistake or fight. These evil predators seize their partner's power and leave them at the manipulator's disposal. Most times, the victims may be utterly unaware of what's being done to them. Signs of negative manipulation in a relationship. He constantly asks you for proof of your love when it's convenient for him. In this case, the person asks you to do something you don't want to do as a sign of your love. He may make you act against your principles just to exert pressure on you. His intention is to use guilt and emotions to control you. For instance, he may push you to terminate a pregnancy by saying, "If you loved me, you would not force me to be a father at this time." He uses emotional blackmail. For instance, he may promise to kill himself if you leave him. He says it like he means it. This instills fear in you, which forces you to stay in an abusive relationship. No one wants to be the cause of another person's death. He therefore uses guilt to keep you where he wants. In some cases, the manipulator even goes ahead and attempts suicide when you try to leave him. Of course, he is too selfish to take his own life. Therefore, he uses a method that he knows cannot kill him, but which scares you into staying. Mind games. He always plays the victim. In this case, the manipulator acts like he is the one who has been hurt, even when he was the cause of an issue. For instance, during a fight, he breaks down in tears and says you've hurt him so bad and claims that you don't love him. He makes you look like the worst person, and yet he was the one who wronged you. This leaves you with a guilty conscience, and you end up apologizing and feeling bad about yourself. You feel like a bad person unworthy of love. A manipulator may try to make you question your own sanity, and this makes you feel dependent on him. It's called gaslighting. He makes you doubt your perception of reality. He does this by reinventing the past and twisting situations. He denies that he said certain things and makes you think you are mixing everything up. He does this calmly and in a convincing way. You eventually lose trust in yourself and in your ability to make a judgment. You turn to him for any major decisions, and this gives him control over you. The abuser becomes overly kind to you and then uses it against you. He first showers you with gifts and romantic gestures. Later, when he wants to force you into doing things you don't want to do, he says things like, "I have shown you so much love, and yet you can't do this little favor for me." This guilt trips you into doing it. It makes you feel like a bad person undeserving of his love, and you end up doing all that he asks of you. He bullies you into doing things. This is where your partner uses harsh tones, gestures, and facial expressions which are meant to threaten you with violence. They scare you into doing what they request even when you didn't want to. This type of manipulation is easy to recognize. Once you are done, he may say things like, "You didn't have to come out as the good guy." This can lead you into thinking that you imagined the violent threats. He acts calm during fights. As innocent as this may sound, it's a negative form of manipulation. If you are the only one enraged, you end up doubting the justification of your anger. It makes you feel guilty, even when the situation had been extremely aggravating, and you had been right to be angry. His intention is to make you feel like you overreact to things. You end up feeling like you are doing things wrong, and like your emotions are out of control. He then brings this up in convenient situations to control you. He diminishes your problems and makes them seem significant, or makes you regret bringing them up. For instance, if you bring up an issue you have, he doesn't listen or sympathize with you. Instead, he brings up his own issue, which he magnifies and takes the attention back to him. He makes it look like you're being weak for complaining over a trivial matter. Such treatment makes you keep your problems to yourself, and it can lead to depression. Effects of negative manipulation. It decreases your self-confidence and causes low self-esteem. When someone repeatedly makes you feel like you are not good enough, reminds you of your mistakes, and makes you feel weak, it negatively affects your mental health. You are consistently in a state of anxiety and scared of making mistakes. The manipulator repeatedly points out your weaknesses and flaws. As a result, you feel the need to get his approval. You find that you are consistently doing things you don't like just to please him. It makes you dependent on the manipulator. You get the idea that if you leave him, no one else can love you with all your shortcomings. This can lead to depression. There are many forms of manipulation. This book is a guide to the different approaches a manipulator may use. It explains the ways in which you can use these tactics in non-toxic ways and get results. In addition, it provides information that can make you wiser and quicker to detect when you are being manipulated. By understanding the mind and tactics of a manipulator, you become more alert and aware of potential exploiters. You empower yourself and learn to avoid doing things that you normally would not have done under normal circumstances. Chapter 2. The Reverse Psychology Technique. Annette is always asking her boyfriend to take out the trash, but he never does it. Her boyfriend is an extremely stubborn person. Before leaving for the mall, she says, "I bet you won't take out the trash. I'll come and do it myself." She comes back to find it done. This is reverse psychology at work. By challenging him, she gets to make him do the task. He does it with the intention of proving her wrong. What is reverse psychology? It's a technique that aims at making someone do something by asking them to do the exact opposite. Studies have shown that forbidden things tend to be more desirable. The famous biblical story of Adam and Eve is a classic example. In the story, Eve eats from the only tree that God has forbidden, despite clear instructions to eat any other fruit except that particular one. It's based on the reactance theory. Reactance is a psychological reaction motivated by requests, rules, or regulations which seem to take away the freedom to behave in a certain way. The individual then responds with defiance. He does it in an attempt to regain the lost freedom and prevent further limitations. This reaction is contrary to what was intended with the restrictions. With reverse psychology, the manipulator plays with his resistance by making a request and expecting the victim to behave contrary to this request. The manipulator thus persuades the victim and gets the desired behavior without the victim's cognizance. 4 types of people who respond to reverse psychology. Only specific personalities respond to this technique. You have to understand the character of your subject. People with low self-esteem may respond to it by sinking deeper into their self-pity and adding more limitations to themselves. For instance, you shouldn't say to a teenage boy who has low self-confidence, "I am sure you can't talk to that girl," in an attempt to get him to talk to girls. He would probably interpret it as a confirmation that he is not good enough to approach girls. So, who should you use it on? Narcissists. They tend to have an inflated admiration for themselves. Narcissists believe that the world revolves around them. With their excessive need for admiration, challenging their abilities prompts them into action just to prove you wrong. In the end, you get your results without much effort. Egomaniacs. This personality is similar to that of narcissists. They are intolerably self-centered and are incapable of seeing beyond their own personal interests. They believe that they are the best at everything. Just like narcissists, challenging their perfection works wonders. Type A personalities. This group of people tends to be very ambitious and competitive by nature. Implying that they cannot do something springs them into action. People who are resistant in nature. While some people are naturally agreeable, others are always ready to challenge everything and anything. They always aim to be on the opposing side, even when agreeing would be beneficial to them. In such a case, the only way to get them to do anything would be by using their resistance against them. How to successfully use reverse psychology. Clearly mention the action you want them to take. Use subtle methods to make it appear exciting. Then discourage them against it. Your victim is sure to take the bait. Always think of the end result. Since reverse psychology is mostly used on people with inflated egos, the situation can turn argumentative. In such a case, do not take your focus off your desired outcome. Focus not on your emotions, but on getting to persuade your victim. Be calm and convincing when using this technique. It's important that your victim sees that you believe and are convinced of what you are saying. They should not know that it's just a motivation to make you act. Otherwise, it might backfire. Manipulate with a challenge. Egotistic people believe they are superior to others in all ways. To get them to act as you want them to, challenge their ability to do the action you desire. Then, watch them strive to prove you wrong. Avoid overusing it. Using this technique may be helpful from time to time, but too much of it creates a buildup. Your victim eventually gets tired of not getting his way and realizes your tricks. This makes you lose power over them, and they may never trust you again. The result is not always assured. You should avoid using it in serious and delicate situations. In such cases, a more direct approach should be used. For instance, if you are trying to get a friend to avoid making a sham investment, telling him, "Just go ahead and make the investment, it's your money anyway," might propel him to make the investment. Instead, use a direct approach and make him feel that he's making his own decision. You can say something like, "I am not an investment guru, but I think that opportunity is too risky. It's not in my place to decide for you." You're showing him that the decision is his to make, while still directing him in the right path. Such talk can make him follow your advice. Besides using it to get a desired behavior, you can use it to give a wake-up call to someone who is reacting in an emotional and irrational way. Take an example of Jane, who is suicidal. She is under a lot of stress and pressure in life. She tries to take her life several times. Her friends and family try to talk her out of it, but she remains adamant. Her friend, Tracy, goes to her house and locks them both in. From her bag, she takes out a gun, poison, and a rope. She takes a few minutes to remind Jane of her achievements, all the good in her life, and the people who love her. Without hesitating, Tracy then asks Jane to make a choice out of the 3 options and use it to kill herself. Jane does not do it. She comes back to reality and sobers up from all the unreasonableness. Practice this art and become an expert in it. Use it when necessary, but not every single chance. Most importantly, know who you're using it on. Using it on an expert in the same technique would result in a battle, and ultimately, the loser would be you. Using reverse psychology on children. Children have a higher tendency of reactance. They constantly want to break rules, to show how far they can get away with it. This trick would be very effective, especially on stubborn children. If you want him to play outside, telling him to stay indoors makes him want to go out. Challenge his abilities as well. For instance, you can tell him, "I would have told you to clean your room, but I bet you're too young to know how to do it." The effect, the room will get cleaned within a few hours. As much as this approach is helpful, experts warn against it. They point out that repetitively allowing your children to act contrary to your advice undermines your authority as a parent. A tip to avoid manipulation through reverse psychology. It's a Saturday afternoon. You have a wedding to attend in 2 weeks' time, so you decide to go shopping for an outfit. At one high-end shop, the sales agent implies that you are probably there to waste her time since you can't afford any of their clothes. She has aroused your pride. You insist. After seeing the choices they have, you choose the best dress and pay for it. The outfit is twice your budget. So what has happened here? The sales agent has made a sale, and you have messed up your budget for the whole month. This is an example of reverse psychology. There is only one way to protect yourself from it: a change of attitude. You do not always have to prove yourself. Confidence in yourself and in your abilities is enough. When you yield to reverse psychology, there is always something for you to lose, and something for the other person to gain. In the above case, what should you have done? You should have thanked the sales agent and walked out of the shop with your head held up high. Alternatively, you could have insisted on seeing the outfit, but on realizing that the cost is above your budget. You should have admitted it to yourself, walked out, and looked for something cheaper elsewhere. Chapter 3. The Concept of Brainwashing. Have you ever been convinced of something, and you believed it so deeply that you would passionately defend it from anyone challenging it? It could be religious views, political views, or general perceptions about things and life. What or who introduced you to these ideas? What did you believe in before that? Someone must be behind the transition, and this person probably brainwashed you. Take an example of the fashion world. A small group of people set the standard of what's beautiful or not, and everyone else blindly follows suit. At some point, skinny and a thigh gap was the standard measure of beauty. Women tried all methods to be as thin as the models on the covers of magazines. Men looked for women with these specific traits. Women starved themselves, and all for what? To feel accepted. The current trend is thick and curvy. Women are undergoing dramatic cosmetic procedures to be as curvy as the Kardashian women. This is brainwash. There is no standard to measure beauty. Everyone is different and unique. You should not try to look like someone just because he or she is famous. People experience brainwashing in their day-to-day lives in the most unrecognizable forms. Sales agents convince potential buyers of their need for a particular product, even when it previously didn't exist. The buyer does not take time to reason that she has been surviving perfectly without it. Politicians play with words and toy with your mind into changing your vote in their favor. The media carefully and deceitfully edits the news to deliver only what they want you to know and make you believe that which they want you to believe. Brainwashing is an art of persuasion. It refers to the concept of attempting to change another person's attitudes, beliefs, and thoughts without their consent or knowledge of the shift. It was originally developed in the 1950s to explain the way in which the Korean government was able to make captured American soldiers cooperate with them. This concept is largely feared and rebuked because it is associated with extreme cases of conversion and cults. In these extreme cases, the victim is entirely under the control of the brainwasher. His identity is totally destroyed, and new behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes are reinforced. The victim is not able to perform basic acts like using the bathroom, bathing, eating, or sleeping without the brainwasher's consent. Such extreme cases are an abuse to human rights. This may sound like fiction, but it's not. Currently, an actress of the famous show Smallville, Allison Mack, is being charged with involvement in a sex cult. It makes one wonder how she ever got to that point. Easy targets for brainwash. Anyone can be manipulated into believing something. However, some are easier targets than others, such as the less thoughtful and intellectually lazy people. These are easy targets for manipulation, since they do not take time to reason things out. They believe what you tell them without doing any research. When approaching them, the brainwasher ensures that he is backed up with some complex-sounding statements, whether true or false. Someone with a connection. Manipulating a person into joining a certain group is easier if there is a connection in the group. This can be either a friend or family member. For instance, a lady who is a Democrat can easily be persuaded to become a Republican if her boyfriend is a Republican. Young people. This is especially easy with children. At this stage, their innocence makes them take whatever they are told to be the truth. Most people are Jewish, Christians, Hindus, or Muslims because that's what was instilled at a young age. They lead all their lives being that specific religion and passionately defend their beliefs, without even the slightest consideration of other options. The vulnerable. It may be someone suffering from an incurable disease, a homeless person, recently bereaved, or jobless. Their desperation makes them overly trusting and easy to manipulate. Some religions and extremist cults take advantage of this. They get into their minds and control their thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs with the promise of a better future. How can you tell when you are the subject of harmful brainwash? Once the brainwashers point you out as an easy target, they start the process of brainwashing you. Your predators take time to study you, your routines, beliefs, strengths and weaknesses, and the people you trust. With this information, they can control you into joining a cult or any other harmful group. Mind control is not just by cult members. It can be done by your spouse, as well as keep you under his thumb. The question now is how they manage to change you from a sound, independent thinker to a programmed human being. Isolation. The brainwasher ensures that you are kept far from friends and family. This isolation serves two purposes. First is to ensure that there is no one around you to give you a reality check, no one to make you doubt the new beliefs or encourage you to leave the relationship. Second is to amplify your feeling of loneliness, especially if you're undergoing a depressing phase in your life that makes you vulnerable. They do not allow you to contact friends or family. If it's in a relationship, your spouse may never let you out of his sight. Breaking your self-esteem. To make you more vulnerable, they attack your self-esteem. With your confidence down, they can rewire your brain as they please. This can be done through verbal and physical abuse, sleep deprivation, embarrassment, or shaming. They dehumanize you with things like spitting and even stripping you naked and taking photographs. They invade your personal space and control every aspect of your life, such as the time you eat, sleep, bathe, or use the bathroom, making the group appear more attractive than the outside world. For cults, they only let you associate with people who have already been brainwashed and who promote the group. With your need to belong to a social group, they make you feel like you belong to a top group that makes you the envy of many. They introduce you to a dress code for group members or a special diet. Other extreme methods may be used to reinforce the group mentality, such as group sex. You are never allowed to think on your own. They overwhelm you with repetitive chants, singing, and complex lectures from the leader. Blind obedience. You are given rewards for obedience and punishment for disobedience. This pushes you to blind obedience, which is the abuser's desired end result. You do all that you are asked without asking questions. In some cases, they reward you for fully conforming to the group by giving you a new name. They test you from time to time to check if you are still under their control. This can be done by asking you to do a task for them that you normally would not have done in your right mind, such as stealing. Brainwashing may not always occur in this extreme form. Parents brainwash their children into pursuing a career that is not in the child's interest but their own. Sometimes it's in your place of work, in the country club where you are a member, or even in your place of worship. You are brainwashed if you think your job title, the car you drive, or the neighborhood you live in is a determinant of your worth. If you are constantly wondering what your boss or religious leaders think about you, you are too scared to set boundaries with them. You never question their decision, and you always side with them when other people question their motives. Acknowledge that you have a problem. Avoiding brainwash. With the right mindset, you can protect yourself from mind control. Know your rights. Know your human rights and stand up to them. Learn to recognize when there is an infringement on your rights, no matter how small. Once you compromise on the minor violations, you compromise on the major ones too, and your predators gain full control over you. If it's your spouse, remember you are more important than the relationship, and leave before it gets worse. Have a thorough understanding of yourself. You become easily swayed if you don't know who you are and what you believe in. Take time to reflect on your inner self. Why do you believe in what you believe in? What are your personal values? Before taking any step in life or making a major decision, ask yourself if it reflects who you truly are as a person. For instance, don't take that course your parents are impressing on you if it's not your passion. Have an intuitive mind. Be curious. Do not just conform to a new idea of thinking just because it's trending. Take time to research on it and fully understand its source and its consequences. Dig deep. Today, it's common to see people blindly adopting new religious movements without fully understanding the concept behind it. Some do it for fun and out of peer pressure, and by the time they realize what they've gotten into, it's too late. Be open-minded, but stay grounded. The world is a dynamic place. New ideas are always developing. It's advisable to be open-minded towards them. However, before adopting any, take time to study them. Your decision should not be as a result of enticement. It should be done with a logical mind and a full understanding of what you are getting yourself into. Set your personal goals. Have a clear vision for your life. Internalize it. With this, it becomes hard for you to be lured by juicy ideas and manipulative bosses. Know what you want in life, and focus on achieving it. Assess your progress in life from time to time, and ensure it's always in line with your vision. A guide to brainwashing without causing harm. The subtle forms of brainwashing can be used without gaining total control of the victim's life. They can be used to get people to buy your products, accept your suggestions without opposing, and change their perceptions about things. Mastering this concept is not easy. It requires a few psychological tricks that can help you own your target's mind. Understand the subject. Besides understanding the easiest targets, you need to understand their personalities, needs, and wants. This gives you an idea of the best approach and what they would easily respond to. For instance, if your aim is to steal a client from a rival bank, you should study the client and learn what he would mostly want in terms of services. Approach him by magnifying the rival's weaknesses and emphasize their effects on his business and profits. Explain the benefits of your bank in relation to these weaknesses. Understanding your target's personality is important. In a study done to analyze the effectiveness of using social media to advertise products, the researchers studied the personalities of their subjects by looking at their Facebook likes. Those who liked parties were classified as extroverts, and those who liked things associated with computers were classified as introverts. A beauty advert was created with different catchwords, either encouraging the party spirit for the extroverts or denoting calmness for the introverts. Results revealed that the extroverts were more likely to buy a product if the advert tailored for them was used and less likely to buy if the same product was advertised using the advert targeted for introverts. Use repetition. When something is repeated several times, people take it as the truth. This is known as the illusory truth effect. It explains that when assessing truths, people check if the information is in line with what they already know, or whether it feels familiar. Repeated statements tend to feel familiar and are interpreted as truths. A research done in 2015 revealed that constantly repeating that a certain fact is wrong can change the hearer's view on the same. It means that familiarity can override rationality. This effect is successfully used by advertisers, politicians, and media houses. When a message is repeated in a group several times, the members take it as part of the group's commonly held beliefs. For instance, some people believe that vaccination is harmful even when diseases continually spread amongst them. Someone probably came up with the fake idea and repeatedly passed on the message until it was taken as a fact. This is the same way that fake news about politicians is spread with the intention of bringing them down. This can permanently destroy a career because later reversing it and changing people's minds can be difficult. Advertisers repeatedly use a slogan and people eventually take it as the truth, even when it's not. For instance, a bank may use the slogan, "The bank with the lowest loan interest rates," in all its adverts. Viewers constantly watching this may believe it to be true, and even avoid all other banks with the false belief that their rates are high. Imitate actions. Imitating a person's actions makes you more likable to them, and influences them to give you a positive response. Results from a study indicated that people are more likely to buy from a salesperson that mimics their way of talking, such as phrases used or mannerisms such as posture. Humans are social creatures. Mimicry creates a feeling of familiarity with the mimicker, which then affects judgment and creates an urge to help. A study on the relationship between mimicry and tips in a restaurant showed that when the waiter repeated the customer's words, tips were higher by 68% than when the waiter just took the order, gave a normal response, and left. The next time you want to influence the outcome of a business meeting with a prospective client, mirror their actions. Not in a weird and uncomfortable way, but with simple gestures such as folding of hands. Too much of it can be irritating and cause a negative effect. Repeat their phrases, smile when they smile, and imitate their posture. Exploit the concept of groupthink. Robert Cialdini from Arizona State did an experiment to determine the best method that could motivate people to save energy. 3 statements were used that showed reasons why saving energy was important. None worked. On introducing another statement which stated that their neighbors were doing it, an impact was made. Those who read the message turned their air conditioning down. This shows the effect peer pressure has on individuals. Everyone has the need to belong. It is because of this need that peer pressure has such an impact on people's lifestyles. There's the constant desire to be accepted by those in the same social class as you, or in the same age group. When making a sale, use this to your advantage by implying that your target's peers are all buying it. In his need to keep up and the fear of standing out, the target may easily take the bait. Confusion and distraction. To easily get your way with someone and get them to accept a new concept, confuse them. Confusion is a mental state of being unclear on something. It creates cognitive distortions which affect the individual's perceptions. This can be done by overwhelming them with complex information and demands that eventually wear them down and kills their will and strength to resist. The exhaustion further enables you to manipulate them and get them to do anything you ask them to. Alternatively, use distraction. This is where you get the target's attention off the unwanted idea and make them focus on your preferred idea. The media uses this all the time by only broadcasting that which supports their cause. By focusing on a specific ideology, it appears to the viewer as the only viable choice. This is common in the business world. Companies distract their market from the negative effects of their products by focusing on the benefits. For instance, a beer advert emphasizes on the fun you have with your friends when drinking. However, it leaves out information about its negative effect on your ability to make sound judgments. This makes the buyers ignore the harmful effects of alcohol. Besides making you an expert in the brainwashing technique, understanding the concept helps you discover when you are the subject of manipulation. You need to be the master of your own mind at all times by keeping alert, especially when facing situations that make you vulnerable. Chapter 4. Lies and Deception. You probably grew up knowing the story of Pinocchio the wooden puppet. Every time he told a lie, his nose grew. The story is commonly used by parents and teachers to warn young children against lying. What constitutes a lie? It is a false statement made by one individual to another with the intention of making the recipient accept the statement as true. Everyone has lied at one point in his life, whether deliberately or when not intending to. You say you are fine when you truly are not. Or you say that your wife's cooking is perfect, while in fact you loathe it. So, are lies that bad? It is Christmas morning. A little girl comes running to the Christmas tree in the living room expecting to find gifts. She finds them well wrapped under the Christmas tree. Her mom explains, "I told you Santa Claus would bring you gifts if you behaved well." With this little lie, the mother is able to manipulate her daughter. She behaves well as she anticipates a gift at the end of the year from Santa for being a good girl. This little lie doesn't sound that bad, does it? In fact, it's beneficial. Circumstances where lying is socially acceptable. In cases where the truth would hurt emotionally, mentally, or physically, a lie would be the best option. The truth can be a weapon of destruction. In some situations, it would be wiser to tell a person exactly what they want to hear. If your spouse asked you if she's still as attractive as she was 30 years ago, would you tell her no? Of course you wouldn't. It would kill her self-confidence and destroy your relationship. A little lying is necessary to maintain your privacy. If the neighbor asks you how your day was, you wouldn't start explaining how the boss shouted at you, that you had a big fight with your spouse, or that your son was expelled from school. You simply say that you're fine and let it pass. Lies are necessary to avoid conflict and the negativity that would result from it. If your friend lied to his spouse that he was out with you and she calls to confirm, assure her that it's true. The truth would just lead to a fight between your friend and her spouse. It would also destroy the relationship with your friend. In fact, you may later find out that your friend lied with a good reason. Types of lies. Lies can be categorized into 3 broad categories. Lies of commission. These are statements that are entirely untrue. For instance, if someone asks you if you are married and you answer no, but the truth is that you have been happily married for quite some time, that's a lie of commission. The person may rely on the false information you have given them to make an important decision. Lies of omission. This is where the person fails to give a part of important information that could have influenced your decision. For instance, you may be buying a house, and you happen to ask the salesperson about the neighborhood. He then assures you that the neighbors are friendly. However, he fails to mention that it's unsafe to walk at night because of a young group of boys who harass people. Such information would have made you have second thoughts, and the salesman knows it, so he deliberately withholds it. Lies of influence. In this case, when asked a question, the person tells something totally unrelated just to avoid telling the truth. For instance, in the case of buying the house, you happen to ask the salesperson about the security of the neighborhood, especially at night. He quickly states that the previous owners had been occupants for over 10 years. He does not tell you the truth that there is a security problem. The statement he gives you is meant to lead you into thinking that there cannot be a security problem and saves him from directly lying to you. Exaggerations. Lies of exaggerations describe statements where a person adds lies to the truth to make themselves or something appear more impressive. This is mostly done by people with low self-esteem and pathological liars. Those with self-esteem do it to be more likable. Pathological liars are just so used to lying that they can't stop themselves. In some extreme cases, they themselves believe the lies they tell. Whether a situation is socially acceptable or not should not restrict you from using a little deceit to get your way in life. Those who break the rules go further in life and always have an advantage over others. For instance, if your employer asks about a project he gave you but you totally forgot about it, would you tell him, "Sorry, I forgot about it"? It would make you appear unfocused and maybe get you fired or served with a warning letter. Say you're almost done and start working on it day and night if possible. As much as lying is portrayed as bad, it is a necessary evil. It enables you to manipulate people and situations in your favor. Train to become an effective liar. An effective liar knows when others are lying to him as well. Just as it's said, it takes a thief to catch a thief, it takes a liar to know another. How to lie and get away with it. Here are a few tips to guide you. Lie only when you have to. The more you tell lies, the higher your chance of getting caught. Keep them at a minimum and only do it when there is something to gain. Managing a lie is hard. You have to keep it in your memory in case someone revisits the issue in the future. The trick is to keep it simple. Tie your lie to a truth. Let's take an example where you were out late at a bar drinking with your friend Mike. Your spouse later asks what you were doing that made you get home that late. It would be easier to tell her that Mike was sad and so you went to his place to cheer him up. That way, you avoid a fight and lecture about how you're so irresponsible. Both the truth and the lie in this case are based on the same thing. You went home late. Such is easier to remember than lying that you had a meeting in the office that took longer than expected. Keep it simple and clear. Giving more details than is necessary makes the person you're lying to doubt your honesty. Avoid adding excuses to your statement, and do not give too many details than you normally would. The key is to make it sound as natural as possible. When over-explaining, it gives the other person a chance to see your nervousness. Besides, a lie has to be remembered. Too many details means a bigger burden of lies that you have to keep in your head. Only say that which needs to be said and move on to the next thing. Make sure it's clear. A vague statement leads to questions. Questions mean you have to give more explanations, and it may not be very smooth or believable. Act like an honest person. Effective liars do not behave like liars. They are undetectable. Their facial expressions, posture, and behaviors reflect honesty. An honest person would acknowledge the mistake and ask for forgiveness. Do the same. Your face should look apologetic as well. In the example of staying out with Mike, apologize to your wife for coming home late. The fact that you are doing it makes your spouse think that you know you shouldn't have come home so late, but the situation was out of your control. It makes you believable and prevents further questions. You also get to ease your guilt by apologizing for your mistake in an indirect way. The lie should be credible. Before giving a false statement, ask yourself if it's believable. Think how likely it is that something like this could have happened. Dubious lies sell you out. If you are late for work and your boss calls you to his office, say something like you woke up to find your neighbor's house on fire and got late trying to put it out is questionable. It can even prompt him to follow up, and this means getting discovered. Use something believable, like traffic. Explain that a minor accident in your street caused a lot of traffic, then apologize. You can further commit to avoid such situations by waking up earlier than usual to leave a bit of time allowance for such incidences. This makes you come out as an honest and committed employee. Be consistent. The reason why you have to keep the lie in your memory is because it has to be consistent. If you have to, write them down for future reference, but no one should see them. You cannot tell one person one thing and later tell another something different. What would happen if they met and happened to talk about it? Your credibility would drop, and your chances to successfully lie and get yourself out of another situation would be gone. For instance, in the situation with your boss, you cannot tell him about traffic and later tell your supervisor that your car broke down. They may compare notes over lunchtime. You wouldn't want such embarrassment. Be calm. Another common giveaway for liars is nervousness and anxiety. This is because lying is never pleasant. Aim at maintaining eye contact and do not fidget. Be close as usual. Guilt makes liars lean back when talking and avoid contact with the other person. If you normally touch the person during normal interactions, do the same now. When asked questions like "really," do not get all defensive. The person may have just said it innocently. Overreacting and giving responses like, "So you don't believe me? You think I'm a liar?" may give you away. It shows your conscience is not clear. Act calm like there is nothing to hide. Prepare in advance. In most cases, it's easy to anticipate a situation where a lie may be necessary. Do not wait to get ambushed for you to start formulating something. If you used up that check your boyfriend gave you in a silly way, he is bound to ask about it. Create the possible scenario in your head. Lying is hard. Prepare for any questions that he may ask. Since you already understand his personality well, it becomes easy to know how to get to his head. Avoid things that would trigger his suspicions. A good liar uses things that would be impossible to follow up on. To be such an effective liar, you need to develop skills such as eloquence of speech, creative thinking, good acting, fast thinking, and excellent memory. Suppress your feelings of guilt and fear. They have no place in a fallacious deceit. These tips are not to encourage you to become a compulsive liar. They are to help you to do it effectively when you have to. Learn how to catch a liar. No one's nose is going to grow after lying like Pinocchio's. You need to be smart enough to catch a liar. Here are a few other tips that can help you detect a good liar and protect yourself from being duped. Understand the person's baseline. A baseline is the way in which a person normally behaves when there's no reason to act differently. Observe their pattern by asking several neutral questions. Note their natural facial expressions, eye movement, and posture. Armed with this information, get to the issue that you suspect they are lying about. Employ the element of surprise by asking when they least expect it. Their pattern of behavior may change subconsciously. This is caused by the discomfort of a lie. For instance, if they normally act calm, they may act restless. If it's a slow speaker, he may speak faster. It tells you that something is not right. Stay alert for micro-expressions. Micro-expressions are brief facial expressions that last from 1/15th to 1/25th of a second. They are involuntary and show a suppressed emotion. You need to be keen to notice them. For a liar, the words spoken contradict their emotions. When giving a fake story, he may try to fake emotions to match the story, but the true emotions are always revealed in his face. Watch him closely. When surprised with questions about a lie he told, he acts relaxed, while in actual sense, he is surprised and scared that you might catch him. This requires sharp eyes to notice, but with practice, you can learn what to look out for. Look out for inconsistencies and contradictions. Some liars tend to be careless when lying and later contradict themselves. For instance, your husband may tell you that he was out late with his friend Mike. A day later, when you ask him how his friend Mike is doing, he absent-mindedly says that it's been long since he saw him. When you further inquire about his earlier claim about being out with Mike, he tries to cover up by saying that he didn't really get to talk. Who would go for a night out with his friend and not talk? This tells you that something is definitely fishy. Follow up with questions. This is to get them to give more details. If it's a lie, they are forced to make up more stories. They weave a tangled web of deceit, which at some point traps them. For instance, you ask an employee if he is still working on a report you gave him, and he says yes. You ask for it to see how far he has gone, and he says it's at home. You ask him why. He says he had taken it with the intention of working on it from home. You call a cab and ask him to go for it. He goes and comes back saying that the dog ate it. You ask for the soft copy, and he says that his computer crashed. At this point, it's easy to tell he's lying. Also note that if he's buying time before answering, he's probably trying to formulate his lies. Trust your gut feeling. Everyone has a sixth sense. It's known to be sharper in women. It is an intuition, something that one just knows but cannot explain it with conscious reasoning. It is information that is not gained through physical sensory organs, but is perceived through the mind. If you feel that something isn't right, it probably isn't. Dig deeper. You are likely to find it's true. Habitual liars may not be easy to detect, but with the right tactics you can uncover them. Always follow up on things, no matter how trivial or uncomfortable. Ask lots of questions and watch out for gestures, verbal cues, reactions, and facial expressions that are outside his normal pattern of behavior. Do not let yourself be distracted. If the explanation is vague, seek clarity until you are satisfied. Chapter 5. Manipulation through Subliminal Influence. Subliminal influence refers to the concept of planting ideas in an individual's subconscious mind through hidden and unnoticeable messages in the backgrounds of sounds and images. It is specifically designed to pass below normal levels of perception. The conscious mind thus does not record it, but the subconscious does. Therefore, the target is usually not aware, but it influences his behavior and pattern of thoughts. So how does an unnoticeable message affect you? Studies have indicated that there's a difference between what you think you have perceived and what you actually perceive. This means that an invisible message can be passed across that you notice but are not conscious of it. It is backed up by a psychological effect called priming. This is a memory effect where encountering a stimulus activates associations in the mind that relates to a particular thing. It affects your subsequent actions without your awareness. During a study done in 1996, subjects were subliminally presented with words. To some they used neutral words, and to others they used words associated with elderly people, such as wrinkle and forgetful. They did not directly mention speed. Those exposed to words related to elderly people were slower when leaving the testing booth than those who were exposed to neutral words. Requirements for the technique to be effective. For a subliminal stimulus to be effective, it should be in line with the person's needs and goals. A research study was done at Princeton University in 2002, where 12 frames of the word thirsty were subliminally presented to subjects during a Simpsons show and 12 more of a Coca-Cola can. The subjects reported being 27% thirstier after the show. However, it only worked in situations where the subject was already thirsty. A well-hydrated person would not react to this stimulus. It can only activate an already existing need. If the subject is aware of the stimulus, he should not be aware of its intended impact on his behavior. Another study done in a liquor store showed that people bought more German wine when the owner played German music in the background, and more Italian wine when Italian music was played. In this case, when subjects were asked what had influenced their choices, few mentioned the music. They clearly heard the music but were not aware of its effects on their choices. Had they been warned beforehand that it would make them drink a particular wine, most would have consciously made a different choice. The above information may not appear practical to your normal day-to-day life. It would be weird if you approached people with an audio recording containing hidden messages that are intended to motivate them into doing something. However, with this knowledge, it becomes easy to identify ways in which subliminal influence can be used effectively to get people to behave in a desired way. You can persuade them by means of unnoticeable or noticeable words or gestures that get their subconscious mind and push them to behave in a desired way. The key is to target the person's psychological needs and weaknesses. Ensure that he is not aware of your intention. He may hear and see the message and gesture, but the important thing is that he be unaware of the effect it has on his actions. Easy ways to influence people using subliminal influence. Equipped with the right tips and consistent practice, you can learn to induce anyone into accepting your requests with minimal resistance. Door-in-the-face technique. This is a trick that can help you manipulate someone into doing something for you. With the door-in-the-face technique, make a large and ridiculous request first that is sure to be rejected. After the rejection, later approach the same person with a much less and more reasonable request of what you actually want. Your chances of getting it done become higher. Guilt plays an important role here. The other person feels that he owes you a favor for refusing the previous request, and so accepts the second. For it to work, the same person must request the favor, and the two requests must be of similar nature. Foot-in-the-door technique. This is an approach almost similar to door-in-the-face, but in this case, you work from down, then go upwards. Once a person has agreed to do a small request, it increases the likelihood of him agreeing to a second and larger request. The same rule as that for the door-in-the-face technique applies. The second request must be of a similar nature to the first and made by the same person. The principle behind this is that with the first request, a bond is created between you and the other person, which makes it hard for him to reject your second request. It creates in him a sense of affinity with you, the requester. For instance, you can borrow a small amount of money from someone, return it on time, and later borrow a bigger amount, which can be the amount that you initially wanted. The Benjamin Franklin effect. Make someone who doesn't like you start liking you by requesting a favor from them. In his autobiography, Benjamin Franklin explains how he got a hostile rival legislator to like him by asking him to lend him a book. Benjamin then strongly expressed his gratitude to the man. This experience led to the growth of a strong friendship between them. When people do an act of kindness, they perceive that they must like the person, even when they do not. This can be explained by a psychological concept called cognitive dissonance. It is a psychological discomfort that results from having two or more inconsistent beliefs. The discomfort leads them to find a way to resolve the clash. In this case, they resort to liking you. Use a name or title. We are all given a name when we are born. It gives you a sense of identity. When you hear your name, you turn your attention to the speaker. Hearing your name constantly repeated makes you feel important. You in turn get to like the person who gives you this feeling of importance. Exploit this weakness by referring to people by their name. In a business meeting with a prospective client, mention their name several times in the conversation. It increases their likelihood of accepting your requests. In other situations, use a title. If you want to get closer to someone, refer to him as friend in conversations. The effect is that with time, he starts acting as one. Refer to someone you wish to work for as boss. He may start viewing himself as your boss, and the self-fulfilling prophecy effect may work in your favor. Nod a lot when you talk. It is a well-known fact that your physical gestures can influence your thoughts and feelings. For instance, slouching keeps you in a bad mood, while smiling makes you happy. Similarly, nodding your head makes you feel in agreement with something. When having a conversation with someone where you are trying to get them to agree to something, nod your head often. The other person feels the urge to follow suit. It is in human nature to mimic behavior. As he nods, he starts to feel in agreement with what you are saying. The result is that you get to make him agree to all your requests. Mirroring and parroting. Mirroring, as mentioned above, is the act of mimicry, and it comes naturally to human beings. Copy the other person's posture, mannerisms, and vocabulary. It makes them feel validated. It also gives the impression that you are like them, and since birds of a feather flock together, they automatically act favorably towards you. Parroting, on the other hand, is reflective listening. When in a conversation, take what the other person says, paraphrase it, and repeat it back to them. It gives them the feeling that you value what they are saying. This makes you more likable to them, and they become more agreeable to your requests. Use flattery. Flattery, whether genuine or not, works. To be complimented is an inherent human desire. It uplifts and adds confidence to a person. A little trick is to make it sound like it's not your intention to flatter. For instance, start with something like, "I hope this doesn't sound inappropriate, but I noticed you have a very keen understanding for investments." Try to do it in front of others. It increases the effect. When used well, flattery makes the other person feel good, and in effect, they develop a positive attitude towards you, your ideas, or products. Do not overuse it. It may sound insincere and have an opposite effect. Use the environmental cues to encourage a desired response. Prime your target with objects that are related to the behavior you want to induce. In a French study done in 2012, a test was done to establish how seeing flowers influenced a romantic pursuit. Young men asked for numbers from 600 women while near a florist, 600 more when outside a shoe shop, and another 600 while near a bakery. The percentages of those who gave their numbers were 25% for those asked near a florist, 10% for those at the shoe store, and 14% for those asked outside the bakery. This indicated that those who asked for numbers near a florist were the most successful. This is because flowers are associated with love. In similar studies, having the faint smell of a cleaning liquid in the air has proven to make people clean up more. The rule of scarcity. When something is scarce, it is more desirable. Every day, human beings face limited resources that act as an obstacle to their goals. The scarcity of these resources creates competition and adds value to the goal. People thus have a conditioning whereby everything scarce appears to have more value, and this activates the need to pursue it more and hold it in high regard. For instance, if you are an investor trying to convince a potential client, start by explaining to the client the many benefits of taking on the opportunity. Further mention that it's a one-time opportunity. This completely hooks the client. To ensure that the deal is closed, mention that many other people are after the same opportunity. Use an image of eyes to get people to act ethically. The image of eyes gives the impression that you are being watched. This is because eyes are an indication of social scrutiny. In a study done to test this, the results showed that subjects in a cafeteria were more likely to clean up after themselves when they saw an image of eyes than when they saw an image of flowers. The next time you want people to drop litter in the waste box, instead of dropping it around, hang a portrait of eyes. Do not make it obvious. For instance, you can make it appear as a work of art to beautify the room. If they are aware of your intention, it may not work. Replace verbs with nouns when addressing people. The need to belong is in human nature. This approach exploits this need. When you address someone using a noun instead of a verb, it gives them a sense of belonging to a group. A study was done where a few people were approached with two different statements. One asked how important it was for the person to vote in the upcoming elections. The other question was how important it was for the person to be a voter in the upcoming elections. Results indicated that those who were addressed in the noun form were more likely to vote than those who were addressed in verb form. The noun voter gave them the feeling of belonging to a group, which prompted them to vote. Choose your words carefully when approaching a potential client. Instead of simply asking him if he wants to invest in your company, explain the achievements and benefits of your company first, then conclude by asking if he is interested in joining the largest company as an investor. The rule of consistency. It is in human nature to be consistent in all areas: words, actions, opinions, promises, attitudes, values, and beliefs. When one makes a decision, for instance, he tries as much as possible to ensure any action he does is consistent with this decision. How can you use this human weakness to get a desired response? Make a habit of asking for favors when the person is tired. Influencing their thoughts at such a time is easy. His mental energy is down, and the guard is dropped. His response in such a state cannot be definite. The most probable scenario is where he asks you to come back tomorrow, just to avoid making decisions at that moment. Make sure to be back just as he says. Though he did not make a promise to do the favor, he may feel obligated to do it and keep his word. For instance, if you want to get your spouse to agree to that vacation you've always dreamed about, make the request on a Monday evening when he is just about to go to bed after a long and busy day. The idea of a vacation may sound appealing to him since he is tired at the time. If he asks that you talk about it tomorrow, do exactly that and start the conversation like he has already agreed to it. Something like, "I was looking at some magazines today and saw this wonderful place that has very low rates. I think it would be the best place for that vacation we talked about yesterday." Thinking that he already made a commitment, he is likely to take you on that vacation. Subliminal influence is a very friendly approach towards manipulation. The target is not lied to in any way, or subjected to other methods like brainwashing and deception. You simply use subtle methods to activate the subconscious mind into inducing a desired action. How you can use subliminal influence for self-help. You can use subliminal messages to give yourself a boost of self-confidence, make you a positive thinker, or help you quit bad habits like smoking. These messages are directed to your subconscious mind. They are passed on to the subconscious in frequencies that the conscious mind cannot pick up on. Through repetition, these positive affirmations are ingrained in your subconscious mind. Just as making positive affirmations with your mouth changes your attitude and approach towards things, subliminal messages do the same. But in this case, an external device directly passes the messages to your subconscious. Play subliminal audio messages in your sleep or during the day as you cook, clean, or exercise. Flash subliminal images with positive messages on your computer screen. Exposure to these messages restructures your mind. Chapter 6. Love Bombing and Emotional Withholding. Love is a beautiful thing, a powerful and deep form of affection. It fills you with warmth, makes you want to be a better person, and can even be a motivation to want to succeed in life. It takes different forms. The love between a man and a woman cannot be compared to the selfless love a mother feels for a child. It is expressed through words, actions, gifts, or gestures that show you care. What is love bombing? It refers to a situation whereby an individual is showered with lots of positive affection with an intention of influencing them. The aim is usually to melt down resistance. This can be done through flattery, gifts, undivided attention, and little acts of care. Love is an inherent need for humans. Everyone wants to get attention and feel loved. This weakness makes love bombing an effective form of influence. It can be used in either a positive or negative way depending on the desired end result. The term was reportedly invented in the 1970s by members of a cult-like church, the Unification Church of the United States. Members constantly showed each other genuine affection and friendship. Its founder, the late Myung Moon, attributed the members' happiness to this concept. However, critics say that love bombing is used in the church as a form of psychological manipulation. It creates an atmosphere of unity within the church in a society that views it as hostile. How to use love bombing on defiant children. Love bombing can be used to mold your child's behavior. Psychologists recommend the use of this approach in children with common behavioral problems. It's effective on those between the age of 3 years and puberty. It entails flooding your child with undivided love and attention. You probably think that this may spoil him, but it doesn't. The love bombing is set for a specific time period. It can be described as a zone that you get into with your child, where he is in control and receives unlimited love from you as the parent. This time is special and different from the normal day-to-day routines. How is it done? Prepare your child first. Tell him that you are going to be spending time with him soon. Let him understand that it is going to be a big event. Get him excited about it. Let him decide on a reasonable fun thing that you can do together. Go away somewhere far from the other family members. As much as you've always been the one in control, let him make the decisions, what you eat, watch, and even where you go. Let him give this time a name, such as special time. The key is to make him feel in control, gratified, and flooding in love. With repeated use, the result is a happier, more agreeable child. The days of shouts and threats become a thing of the past. Inducing a desired action. Successful people do not take no for an answer. Prior to making a request, they create a favorable atmosphere with the other person that encourages a positive response. A story of World War I is told of how some soldiers were given a task to go into enemy territory and capture soldiers for questioning. A German soldier sent on this mission caught a soldier off guard having lunch alone in a trench. Unaware of what to do, the caught soldier offered the German soldier a piece of his bread. Surprised by the generous act, the German soldier could not go through with the assignment. One good deed deserves another. It triggers a need to reciprocate. This is a social norm, a social conditioning. When something good is done for you, the rule of obligation states that it creates a need in you to reciprocate. The psychological pressure of this does not let you rest until you fulfill it. If you want to persuade anyone into doing something for you, perhaps a favor, be overly nice to them. Shower them with affection and attention. Give them gifts, your time, and flatter them often. Show them love. This gives them a positive feeling about themselves and makes them happier. The need to reciprocate overwhelms them to the point that they can do all that you ask them to as long as it's reasonable. Love bombing in romantic relationships. You are seated in the office minding your own business when your colleague, Christy, suddenly giggles like a 13-year-old girl. She is reading a text message. From the look on her face, it's from her boyfriend. You feel mildly jealous of her good luck. The calls, text message alerts, and the giggling continue. It doesn't stop there. Her boyfriend shows up to take her out for lunch, and he later picks her up in the evening. Does it sound too much? Similar to all other psychological techniques for persuasion, love bombing can be done with either good or bad intentions. Psychopaths use this approach in romantic relationships to gain control over their victims by using a vicious cycle of emotional manipulation and abuse. Beware of these predators. They come dressed as your Prince Charming or the woman of your dreams. They hide their sharp claws behind a facade of the perfect partner. Love bombing in a relationship is not always with an evil intention. Some people offer big love in a relationship, especially after long periods of loneliness. Although the excessive love and the obsession may be annoying, it is harmless. This can be resolved easily by talking about it. Express your discomfort to your partner and agree to take it slow. The harm in love bombing comes in when the period of intense love is followed by a period of love denial. The love bomb is usually a bait to get into a relationship with them and keep you hooked to them. Like a hard drug, you become addicted to them. By the time the abuse and controlling comes in, you are too attached to notice or do anything about it. Besides, if you start pulling back, they simply throw in a few more love bombs, and you are hooked again. You become a puppet. Love bombing as a sign of a toxic relationship. A psychopath's intention of love bombing is to make you feel like you can't live without him. He showers you with attention and love very early in the relationship. It makes you feel addicted to them. Here are a few signs that you are headed in the wrong direction. Love at first sight. He declares his love within a few days of knowing you. It is common sense that love is a process. It takes time to develop. A normal person would not drop the L word until later in the relationship. It is true that every relationship has its own pace, and people take different time periods before falling in love. However, there is a difference between soon and too soon. If he is declaring that you are the love of his life within 2 days of meeting, stay alert. He may take declarations of eternal love, or say that you are perfect for each other. This may sound flattering and feel like a fantasy, but life is not a fairy tale. In the real world, love at first sight does not exist. Trust your instincts. If it feels too good to be true, it probably is. Extreme expressions of love. Besides the sudden declaration of love, he expresses it in intense ways. He may text you throughout the day, give you a call every hour, send flowers after every 2 days, or take you to lunch daily. He may frequently pass by just to check on you. You may feel spoiled and adored, but it's not worth the pain that follows this. Besides, the excessiveness of it becomes a nuisance within a few days. The reason the maniac does this is to create a feeling of obligation towards him. It makes you feel indebted towards him. The constant calls and show-ups are to keep you close to him and far from your friends and family. He makes sure that every single free minute you have is spent with him. They always say the right things. These manipulators are smart. Before approaching their victim, they take time to study them. By the time he talks to you, he already knows your weaknesses and insecurities. He knows the buttons to press and which to avoid. With this information, he is able to present himself as the perfect partner. In a moment of weakness, he says exactly what you want to hear, and this gives you the impression that you have found your soulmate. Do not be carried away by this. With a logical mind, you can see beyond the mask. Think about it. How long did your closest friends and family members take to fully get you? How then would a stranger suddenly show up and seem to understand you perfectly, if not with hidden intentions? Excessive compliments. It is necessary to compliment your spouse from time to time. It makes them feel appreciated and reassures them that they are still attractive to you. The compliments, however, have to look and feel genuine. In a love bomb, the compliments are excessive, shallow, and inauthentic. Their intention is to butter you up and make mistreating you in the future easier. For instance, he may say, "You are perfect at all times, even at the most opportune moments." The insincerity of it begins to irk with time. Exaggerated romantic gestures. Romantic gestures make the relationship interesting and keep the fire burning. They do not have to be grand. What matters are the thoughts behind them. The average lover sticks to little sweet things, such as flowers, picnics, little notes, and cards or thoughtful gifts. On the other hand, a manipulator will love bomb you with a serenade or declare his love for you in a skywrite. If you are a reserved person, such gestures can embarrass you. He may do these things within just a few days of dating. The psychopath does these extreme gestures with the intention of creating a feeling of indebtedness in you. He then later uses it to manipulate you into doing things you don't want to do. They appear and act flawless. Everyone has weaknesses. A normal partner may at times slip up and apologize, even when he appears perfect. This is how a normal relationship works. A psychopath, however, appears and acts perfect. This is because his every move is calculated and well planned. They tend to be very smart. Like mentioned earlier, he studies you keenly before dating you. He can anticipate your every move and reaction. This is to further cement his appearance of the perfect partner and kill any chance of you leaving before he locks you down. Do not be carried away by this perfect boyfriend show. It is a sign that he may be a narcissist. If true, he is later going to blame you for every fight you have and make you apologize for his mistakes. If someone cannot be real enough to show you his weaknesses, then that's a major red flag. You may be on to a manipulative relationship. They move fast. When your boyfriend of 4 days is suddenly planning on meeting your entire family, it may feel a little uncomfortable. Taking a major milestone too soon is a red flag. He may be trying to do this in order to make you feel too invested to leave. Approach him and raise your concerns. Clearly tell him how you feel and stand your ground. If he wants to move in with you or wants to meet your parents, explain to him that you are neither ready for it nor comfortable about it. If his intentions are pure, he should understand this. If they aren't, he may try to trick you into it or use lies. For instance, he may coincidentally be in the same restaurant you are having lunch with your parents and happily introduce himself as the love of your life. Constant communication. Communicating is the key to a happy relationship, they say, but there's a thin line between healthy communication and downright freaky. With modern technology, there are many ways in which a person can reach out or communicate. A normal partner may text or email you occasionally. However, a love bomber may text, email, send a Facebook message, tweet, and call all day long. If you fail to respond on one mode, he may try another. It's obsessive and annoying. His aim is to keep your attention focused on him. If you are too busy to respond to him, he may suddenly show up unannounced and make you feel guilty for not loving him enough. What comes after love bombing? The fairy tale turns into a horror story. There is no happily ever after, just disappointments, self-hate, and abuse. The abrupt end of the honeymoon phase. Once you are totally hooked on the predator, the tables turn. His true colors show. By this time, you are usually too blinded from all the love bombing to realize what's really happening. He starts to abuse you, criticize you, and pick fights over the slightest issue, then blames it on you. The sudden shift from the excess love to utter contempt leaves you confused. You end up in denial, hopeful that the abuser may change to the perfect partner he once was. This is the reason most people stay in toxic relationships, forgiving the abuser over and over again. Unreasonable demands. After all the love and affection, the predator has you under his thumb. He may manipulate you by threatening to leave, or set unrealistic ultimatums. He may forbid you from meeting with friends or family. Any plans that do not involve him are forbidden. In fear that your soulmate may leave, you oblige. He sucks the life out of you and monitors your every move. Every part of your life becomes under his control. He may belittle whatever is keeping you from him, such as your job, friendships, or business. He may call you selfish for having a life outside of him and even turn on you. Exploiting your weaknesses. The manipulator is already aware of your insecurities and weaknesses. He exploits them and abuses you. If you had opened up about your past relationships and failures, he uses them against you. He turns the insecurities into shame and self-hate. This is to kill your self-confidence and make you fall deeper into your low self-esteem. For instance, he may repeatedly comment, "No wonder your previous husband left you," whenever you fail to do something he wants. This makes you feel unworthy of his extravagant love. You eventually feel no one else can love you like him, and this ties you to the abusive relationship. A vicious cycle. Once you show the slightest signs of pulling back, he starts with the extravagance again. This is meant to tie you back to him. It then starts to feel like love again, and you forget all the abuse and control. Once you are hooked, the abuse starts. It becomes an endless cycle of emotions. Most people experience this phase of love and abuse multiple times before finally realizing its psychological harm. The natural need for humans to feel loved and appreciated keeps them in such abusive relationships. If your partner appears too good to be true, take time to observe how he treats other people. A bully and abuser is a bully to everyone else. Do not be fooled by the sweetness he shows you. Always remember that a healthy relationship takes time to build and develop trust. Love at first sight is a myth. There's no shortcut. If your relationship shows the above signs, cut ties and leave. Seek professional help or support from families. You may have fallen for the love bombing as a result of underlying issues, such as low self-esteem. Emotional withholding. Have you ever had experiences where you tried to talk or connect with someone close to you, and they totally ignored you to a point where you almost doubted your own existence? How did it make you feel? Unvalued, hurt, resentful, or depressed? Did it further fuel your fear of rejection, or did you feel inadequate? You probably felt all of these. What was the issue that led up to the person treating you in such a way? Is it because you failed to fulfill their every desire? Did the coldness make you give in to their demands just to gain their affection and attention back? This is basically how emotional withholding works. Emotional withholding refers to a situation whereby affection and attention is withdrawn from one individual with an intention of achieving control over him or her. This is a common form of manipulation that causes psychological harm to the victim. The withholder does it to punish the victim or get an upper hand in the relationship. It is the complete opposite of love bombing. Instead of getting flooded with love, it's denied from you. The intention of the manipulator in this case is to leave the victim confused and unsure of himself. This then makes him run back to the manipulator, willing to make things right and thus win their affection back. It works because humans crave approval. When attention and affection is taken away, people do whatever it takes to get it back. Who uses this technique? Similar to love bombing, it could be used by groups such as cults and churches to punish individuals who stray from the group's rules. The other members are advised to avoid contact with the person who has sinned. The fear of this isolation keeps everyone in check. You may be experiencing withholding in your social circles as well. Your clique may make fun of you or point fingers at you if you act in a way contrary to the group's normal behavior. This is especially common in schools and colleges. If you are seen talking to a person who the rest consider as not cool enough, for instance, they isolate you and make fun of you. Abusive partners use this as well. They do not leave. Instead, they actively stay in the relationship, but treat you in coldness, and no matter how much you beg for affection, they offer none. Some even respond with scorn to your attempts to reach out. They shame you and show you that their behavior is your entire fault. The withholding ends only when you act accordingly. How to handle emotional withholding. If your partner is using this form of psychological abuse, leave. Quit the relationship and never look back. Sometimes fighting is never worth it. If you give in to his demands, he is likely to use the same tactic again and again. Such dysfunction only hurts you psychologically, kills your esteem, and leaves you constantly begging for his attention. This is unhealthy. Affection should not be begged for, or be treated as a prize for good behavior. It should flow naturally in the relationship. Your partner should not be the reason for your destruction. He should help you build yourself and be there when you need him. If it's a group that is constantly punishing you with rejection, you always have the choice of leaving. Depending on the affection of a few people for our validation is pure bullshit. Understand your partner. Sometimes he or she may grow up knowing withholding as the only form of showing displeasure. In such a case, such a person may respond to other logical problem-solving approaches. He or she may use withholding to provoke a response from you. In other cases, if it is just a tantrum, be cool and mature about it. Take a deep breath and let the person get over it first, Then use communication tactics that are nonviolent and effective. Using emotional withholding for your own benefit. You can use emotional withholding to get a desired response. For instance, if you make a request for a favor and it's denied, reduce the attention that you would normally give to that person. Cutting it out completely may appear immature and make you come out as a manipulator and a fake. The aim in this case is to just induce the right amount of guilt on the other person to make them change their mind. For the right amount of guilt to arise and make this tactic work, the other person must hold you in high regard. However, remember that repeating this method can cause psychological harm on your victim and destroy your relationship. Only use it when it's completely necessary and in moderation. Conclusion. There is the dark side and the good side to manipulation. When one side can cause harm to individuals and destroy relationships, the other side has countless benefits. It can help you achieve your desired goals, influence people to make positive changes in their lives, and help you slide your way out of a tricky situation. The power is in your hands. You can take either side, but remember that there is no good that comes from preying on others. If you cannot help yourself, seek professional help, or join a self-help group where you can meet others with the same issues as you. No one is immune from manipulators. To protect yourself from being preyed on, learn to flee when you recognize one. Do not fall for familiarity. Being used to abuse does not make it right. Learn to protect and value yourself. A predator's main target is people with low self-esteem, those with a high need to prove themselves, and those who are easily influenced.